Welcome to this week's edition of the Top 10 in Prophecy, brought to you by The Watch Post, your home for end times news and last days commentary. I'm your host, the Watchwoman at her post. Today is Saturday, May 2nd, and this is episode 107. Folks, we're seeing unmistakable signs of convergence with this week's stories, and things are getting a little strange too. So grab your tinfoil hat and hold onto your chair while we get the countdown rolling. We start with story number 10, fire streaks across the South American sky. This week, thousands across Argentina and Uruguay were stunned as a massive green fireball blazed across the night sky, lighting up Buenos Aires, the Rio de la Plata region, and surrounding areas. Around 10:51 p.m. Monday evening, cameras from homes, streets, and businesses captured an intense green bolide cutting through the darkness with extraordinary speed. Witnesses described shock, awe, and fear as the sky suddenly ignited above one of South America's most populated regions. Social media erupted instantly, with videos spreading across the world as millions watched the mysterious object burn through Earth's atmosphere. Experts say the meteor's vivid green tint was caused by its mineral composition, magnesium or nickel. Why it matters? This is just one more in a long line of recent signs in the heavens, friends. The Lord is getting our attention, one amazing sight after another. Number 9. CERN's countdown to shutdown. Well, sort of. The world's largest particle accelerator is now entering its final 2 months of existence. This week, CERN began high-intensity stress tests on the Large Hadron Collider ahead of a total 4-year shutdown scheduled to start in June. These high-intensity tests have been producing some intriguing results. For one, scientists observed what they believe to be previously undiscovered subatomic particles behaving in a way that completely overturns our standard model of physics. As the clock runs down to the end of June, CERN continues to push the Large Hadron Collider to its limits. Why it matters? Some fear that the high-energy activities scheduled for the next few weeks pose more risks than any resulting data or discoveries might be worth. Among those risks is the possibility that the sheer density of energy in these collisions could tear the fabric of spacetime, creating a dimensional rift. In other words, the opening of a portal. Another concern is that higher intensity collisions could cause a micro black hole that falls to the center of the Earth and slowly consumes the planet. Then there's the latest fear, which stems from a viral report published earlier this year suggesting that the Large Hadron Collider is causing reality to glitch, which in turn causes shifts in our timeline. Ever hear of the Mandela effect? Number 8. All new government Hunger Games are coming soon. With Thursday's passage of the 2026 Farm Bill, a $187 billion reduction in food stamp (SNAP) benefits is now locked in. This comes at a time when food prices are higher than ever, jobs are cut by the thousands on an almost weekly basis, and job growth is essentially nil. Adding insult to injury, Friday, May 1st marks the beginning of a new work requirement for benefit recipients between the ages of 55 and 64. These individuals must now prove 80 hours of work or training per month to continue receiving assistance. Meanwhile, states are tightening the belt even further. This month, Texas officially became the first to enforce a total ban on using SNAP for candy and soda. Why it matters? While I don't need to tell you how bad the U.S. economy is, I will say this. When times get tough and people are hungry, when their children are hungry, desperate times call for desperate measures. We should expect civil unrest, an increase in crimes, and maybe worse. Only time will tell. Number 7. Shockwave ripples through energy markets as Hormuz blockade continues. The escalating maritime conflict in the Middle East has caused gas prices to spike nearly 30 cents this week, with the national average now hitting $4.30 per gallon. California is paying $6 in some places. At $126 per barrel, Brent crude oil prices have spiked to levels not seen in 4 years. President Trump confirmed Thursday that the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports will remain in place for months if necessary. Why it matters? As the market finally reacts to the reality of diplomatic deadlock, the hits are sure to keep coming. One thing leads to another, and as we're about to see in the next few stories, the economy is up against the ropes and trapped in the corner of one brutal boxing ring. If this doesn't lead to the time when it takes a whole day's wage to buy a loaf of bread, well, it'll be a miracle.
Hey there, it's Andy here at the Watchpost. Just reminding you to subscribe to the channel if you like this content. It's completely free, won't cost anything at all. Be sure to click on the bell if you want to be notified when we post new videos. Thanks for listening.
Number 6. High gas prices inspiring theft and organized crime. Police across the U.S. and internationally are reporting a dramatic spike in petrol drive-offs. This is when people fill their tanks and flee without paying. Weekly reports of drive-offs have increased by nearly 30% nationwide. What's worse, though, because modern cars have anti-siphoning valves, desperate thieves are now using cordless drills to puncture gas tanks directly from underneath the car. This turns a $50 fuel theft into a $1,500 repair bill for the victim. Then there's the industrial-scale theft. Authorities in Florida and California recently busted theft rings that were using modified minivans and box trucks with cut-through floorboards and 500-gallon tanks with industrial pumps to siphon fuel directly from underground tanks at unsuspecting gas stations, emptying them in minutes. Why it matters? Because times like these inspire creative criminals. Lawless activities take root and thrive. And, like Jesus said, the love of many grows cold. Number 5. A medicine famine and its impact on healthcare. As the world watches missiles fly, oil prices climb, and food inflation, another crisis is brewing with pharmaceutical supplies. This week, official U.S. reports confirmed that 223 medications are now on active U.S. drug shortage lists. Supply chain experts say that maritime disruptions in the Red Sea are largely to blame. Commercial vessels in that region face attack by Houthi militants, often causing insurance costs to soar, leading to departure delays and all-out cancellations. Also, when ships have to be rerouted around Africa, the long detour causes essential healthcare products sourced from countries like Jordan to face dangerous delays. This is putting essential meds like amoxicillin and chemotherapy drugs at critical risk. 48% of amoxicillin comes from Jordan. Critical generics are at risk as well. Why it matters? The shortage of these medicines forces rationed care, where hospitals, pharmacies, and providers may increasingly rely on substitute treatments, delayed procedures, or less ideal alternatives. Prolonged Red Sea instability will intensify a healthcare system that's already under strain. This is a perfect example of how the tentacles of war spread out and impact so many other aspects of life, things we tend to take for granted. Without proper medicine, disease spreads, which pulls the trigger for plague and pestilence prophecies. Number 4. Requests for exorcisms increase as demonic activity no longer hides. Religious leaders are warning of an unprecedented rise in spiritual conflict. This month, the International Association of Exorcists issued an urgent plea to Pope Leo XIV, warning of a widespread surge in demonic activity and demanding trained exorcists in every diocese on earth. Here in the U.S., reports show that requests for deliverance have jumped from a few a month to as many as 5 per week in some cities. As Pastor David Lynn declares 2026 the year of spiritual warfare, the line between the physical and the supernatural is becoming thinner by the day. Lynn and others have officially declared 2026 as the year of spiritual warfare. These leaders are framing the current lawlessness in culture, crime, social collapse, and political vitriol not as political failures, but as the spirit of Amalek, a biblical reference to a persistent enemy attacking the vulnerable. Why it matters? The closer we get to the 7-year tribulation, the greater the evil will become. Lawlessness is one thing, but what's coming is far worse. These entities will one day be loosed on earth en masse to wreak a new kind of havoc on mankind. We'd be wise to armor up and pray for protection as the veil continues to thin day by day. Number 3. 2026 brings a record-breaking surge in tornadoes across the U.S. At this point in time, the U.S. has already recorded more than 530 tornado events for the year. A series of major outbreaks across the Plains, Midwest, and Mississippi Valley has pushed 2026 into a notably active spring pattern. March came in at nearly 2.5 times the historical norm, and April didn't slow down, it intensified. Meteorologists say this spring has featured repeated setups with strong wind shear, high instability, moisture overload, and back-to-back storm tracks. In plain terms, the atmosphere has been primed repeatedly and violently. But something else is happening too. The danger zone isn't just traditional tornado alley anymore. more activity has been shifting eastward into parts of the Mississippi Valley, Midwest, and Dixie Alley, putting more populated regions at greater risk. That means more people, more infrastructure, and often more nighttime tornado threats. Why it matters? These storms are considered among the birth pains Jesus warned us about. Just like a woman in labor, this particular set of pains has only been getting stronger and more frequent. We should expect the trend to continue. Number 2. New evidence emerges for the site where Noah's Ark might have been found. New ground-penetrating radar images of the Dupinar site in eastern Turkey, near Mount Ararat, have revealed symmetrical corridors, room-like chambers with right angles, and layered structures consistent with a large multi-deck vessel. The boat-shaped geological formation at the site was originally discovered in 1959 during a government land surveying project. Some researchers believe this is the real, decayed, buried remains of Noah's Ark and are working to convince skeptics with more scans and planned drilling. Soil analysis also showed nearly 3 times more organic material inside the formation than outside, suggesting possible decayed wood or biological remains. While mainstream geologists still view it as a natural formation, proponents say the dimensions, roughly 515 to 538 feet, and subsurface features strongly align with the biblical ark described in Genesis. Why it matters? Though it doesn't tie directly into end times prophecy, Jesus himself said that in the last days, things would be like they were in the days of Noah. When you consider the debauchery and moral decay surrounding us in these modern times, it seems the Ark discovery would be quite fitting. And finally, story number 1. Will the Holy Land become a Christian Disneyland? What happens when the birthplace of Christianity still has the churches, still has the sacred landmarks, still has the pilgrims, but loses its actual Christian people? A senior Benedictine abbot in Jerusalem is now warning that the Holy Land could become what he calls a Christian Disneyland. Abbot Nicodemus Schnabel, who oversees major Christian sites including Dormition Abbey on Mount Zion, says local Christian communities are shrinking under the pressure of war, economic hardship, emigration, and social instability. Christians now make up only about 2% of the region's population. His fear? That the churches remain, the tour buses keep coming, the holy sites stay preserved, but the living Christian families, the local worshipers, the next generation disappear. In other words, a sacred stage set without the people who once gave it life. Why it matters? For prophecy watchers, this resonates deeply. Scripture repeatedly warns of spiritual decline, of forms of godliness without power, of apostasy before major end times developments. 2 Thessalonians 2:3 warns of a falling away, and many believers see this not necessarily as direct fulfillment, but as a sobering cultural signal. That's it for this week's edition of the Top 10 in Prophecy. Join us again next week for another update. Until then, stay in the Word and keep your eyes on Jesus.
Thanks for watching. Please leave your thoughts about this week's stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click the bell for notifications.